Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be doing another reaction video. So I did a reaction video already to Dash Fight's Tekken 8 wishlist. I'll go ahead and show you guys the screenshot if you want to see and if you want to go back and watch that one. But they did a part 2. And in this part 2, they have Blasted Salami doing the voiceover. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Blasted Salami, and also I would say I'm a big fan of Dash Fights. Their last video, I enjoyed it, and it seemed like a lot of you guys enjoyed it, and that's why I wanted to do this second one. So I'm just going to jump right in it. You know how this goes. I play a clip, I talk about it, play a clip, talk about it. Let's see what they have to offer this time.
Hey everybody, this is Aria from That Blasted Salami. Not long ago, we made a video going over some top features we want to see in a future Tekken game. Today we want to expand on that list and add some things that didn't make it to the previous video. First of all, slimmed down movesets.
I have mixed feelings about this one. There's a lot of good points made in this segment, so let's listen to what Blasted says, and then we'll talk about the mixed feelings afterwards.
With every new game, Tekken's generally done nothing but expand on its characters, constantly adding new moves, giving old moves new properties, or creating new follow-ups.
Talking about how they always add more and more and more and more moves. I do think this is becoming kind of a problem. If you just pay attention to Tekken 7 by itself, in Tekken 7 they added new moves, they added new mechanics, wall bounce, wall stumble, power crush, rage drive, rage art. You have so many different options, and yes, all of those options makes the game more diverse, but at a certain point it starts hurting the game. Like in season 2, when they added the new moves, that's when the damage started to increase, that's when the wall travel started to increase. Just focusing on Tekken 7, I can only imagine how over the course of Tekken 3 to Tekken 7 the problem got maybe worse in some ways too. But at the same time, there is a lot of benefits.
Fast forward to Tekken 7, and we call Claudio's moveset small because it only has 64 moves.
That's funny. I always say Claudio has the smallest move list in the game, but he has one of the best win rates, so this kind of shows that less is more. But at the same time too, you do have this problem where a lot of the characters are feeling the same. Since they are kind of condensing the move list for some characters, you have a lot of general tools.
For an average character, this number usually floats at around 80 to 100. And then there are extreme cases like Eddie, Yoshimitsu, King, and Lei, who all have over 160.
Yoshimitsu, this is definitely a problem. The character is considered to be one of the worst characters in the game, yet has one of the biggest movesets in the game. Now, I like Yoshimitsu having this big moveset, and you can have a lot of different options, and I always say, oh, they should add this to King Cha, or they should add this to Bad Stomach stance, and all these different stances. But at the same time, you have so many mediocre moves mixed into one character. Lei as well, and even though King is a solid character, all of these guys, King, Eddie, they have so many useless tools. It's very tricky to cut down a move list.
However, I think we all could name at least a few moves or strings that our mains could lose without it having any negative impact. Cutting down on some of the excess and consolidating the movesets could have a very positive impact overall. Learning dozens of matchups is suddenly way more manageable. Picking up a new character is not as frustrating, and the number of knowledge checks would inevitably decrease.
Like, one thing that I probably will never forget this, but Main Man Sweet entered a tournament and he got shut down by Leo. Leo did a grab that wall splats, and Main Man Sweet forgot that the one, she has that grab, and then two, that it wall splats, and he lost the whole tournament because of it. Like the same thing with Nee. When Nee was fighting DeWood, and DeWood had that Alyssa where he flew up off the ground and Nee swung at her and missed. It's like very specific moments like this is what makes Tekken great, but also hurts it.
Secondly, stronger movement. A deep, layered, intricate movement system has always been one of Tekken's most distinct features. While it might look simple on paper, weaving proper movement into your gameplay and recognizing which option to use at any given moment requires an immense level of mastery. A big reason for why movement is worse in Tekken 7 is the highly inconsistent approach to tracking. Even though full tracking is usually a privilege of homing moves, there are a lot of attacks in Tekken that have extreme tracking to either left or right side, or even both.
I always say the reason why they nerfed movement is for us. A lot of people say they want movement, but even with the movement that's in Tekken 7 already, I rarely see people sidestepping. Once I do run across someone who's sidestepping, I'm like, okay, this person's the real deal. But the majority of the matches, no one sidesteps. And I don't know if that's because you can't sidestep or if they can't, right? That's a good distinction. Maybe they're not sidestepping because the movement isn't bad, or maybe they're bad, and but I just think the reason why they nerfed movement is so it's easier to hit people. It's decreasing the skill gap. And in Tekken 8, I don't think they're gonna buff it. They may, considering how many people is talking about it, but I know the reason why they did it is to make the game easier. It's a fighting game. They want casuals to be able to hit other people, right? That's the point.
Thirdly, better visual feedback. Outside of practice mode, you won't see indication of landing a clean hit, counter hit, or a punish. The game also doesn't tell you the level of attacks that are coming your way. While you could guess by looking at the visuals and be right, most of the time, it's just not consistent enough to be reliable. And when you add the evasion and crush systems to the mix, things get even more confusing. The game is in no rush to tell you what exactly happened, so back to the lab you go.
For Claudio, his wall tactic, you can loop that, right? But if you look at the frame data on paper, you would think that if you wall tactic and they splat, they're minus 24. You get a free one. And then if you try it and they're blocking, someone may not understand why they're able to block even though they're minus 24 and the attack you're doing is 17, right? They should be getting hit. So that's kind of what this is saying.
However, it doesn't have to be this way. For example, Virtua Fighter gives the player a sound cue for when an attack is successfully evaded by sidestepping. Tekken could do the same with additional cues for crushing and evasion. Moves that are punishable on block could be presented more clearly as well. For example, any experienced player would know that Paul's Death Fist is punishable on block, but it really doesn't seem that way when you first look at it.
A lot of people know when a counter hit is counter hit because when it makes a specific sound, you hear that and you're like, oh, counter hit, let me do the combo that I normally do in these situations. Audio cues is very important, and that's something that they could leverage.
Fourthly, better customization. Despite customization appearing a bit later into the series with Tekken 5, it arguably peaked immediately afterwards in Tekken 6. That game and the subsequent Tekken Tag Tournament 2 offered a surprising amount of freedom to those who wanted to express their creativity or personalize their favorite character. It's hard to say the same for Tekken 7, which drastically cuts down on the customization options.
I attribute the lack of customizations to Tekken switching engines, going from the Octane engine in Tekken Tag 2 to Unreal. They had a lot of issues there, and maybe they weren't able to make as many customization items as they would like. And then also another thing is we all know about the budgeting issues. Even though Harada denies it, I still believe there was some budgeting issues going into Tekken 7. So Tekken 8 I think will fix all of these problems without a doubt, right?
Next is optimization.
Optimization, this is possibly the most important one. I know everyone talks about rollback netcode, but I've been trying to do my best to tell people the problem is not rollback netcode. The problem is matchmaking, is loading times, is lagging in practice mode. Like, there's a lot of key flaws in Tekken 7 that goes beyond simple rollback netcode. Rollback netcode is one branch on the tree of internet infrastructure. There's a lot of key flaws with Tekken 7, and I honestly don't know what happened. When Tekken 7 first came out and all the way up until about season 2, there wasn't problems like this. The game really just kind of collapsed in its older years as it aged. I don't know what happened. I can only hope the developers do, because the game was not like this at first.
Tekken 7 faced some notable issues. When it comes to consoles, they always had to put up with higher input latency than PC. fans have created a mod that increases the frame rate to 120 and makes the game a lot more responsive. The fan-made mods also did their best to decrease loading times, a bane that's annoyed Tekken 7 players for years.
This part is really funny. So you have a section here where Blasted Salami is talking about how people create mod. They mod the game and the load times is shorter. It's less lag. It's less this. That's the thing. If mods are able to do it with a mod, why didn't the developers do it in patch 5.0? In patch 5.0, that's probably the biggest letdown, is that they completely ignored all the internet problems. If it's this easy for a modder to fix, you know, come on Tekken, what's happening?
Some of these issues might be related to developers switching to a new engine after Tag 2. Let's hope it's not an issue in the next game. Next up is quality of life features. Have you ever joined a full Tekken lobby and thought, I wish I could play with other people instead of waiting for my turn? Despite having their own set of drawbacks, this is something that ArcSys fighters figured out a long time ago by allowing you to either hop in a queue with other players or start a new match with someone else within the same lobby.
This is actually kind of a old idea. I can't remember what Mortal Kombat it is. It might be Mortal Kombat versus DC, but you were able to go into a lobby and fight other people at the same time. Tekken is really kind of behind on a quality of life, and mind you, this game is from a totally different era. I have to always mention that. This game came out in 2017. Before it even came out, it was like really done, probably like 2015, 2016. A lot of these issues that we complain about, and it's like, oh my God, you know, these things will just be fixed because of how much time has passed.
How about matchmaking while in practice mode?
Yeah, matchmaking in practice mode is another one.
This is also something that's become a standard feature in fighting games, where you can practice some combos, but nothing else. Then there's the problem of not being able to practice against the DLC characters. Admittedly, this is a common problem in pretty much all fighting games. There's an obvious incentive behind it, as it could drive people to buy the DLC.
Not being able to practice against DLC, I understand why they do it, because one, yeah, they want you to buy the DLC, and two, I gave this example a long time ago. You know how Grand Theft Auto, they add new cars and guns and weapons and all that stuff. They add it to the multiplayer and story mode. And what I used to do was go into the story mode where you have billions and billions of dollars from beating the game, and I used to buy the stuff there, and I used to test out everything that I wanted to buy and didn't want to buy in story mode, so when I go to multiplayer, I know exactly what to buy, how to customize it, and everything. So that's one way that I was kind of, I don't know if you could still do that, but that's one way I was gaming the system. And I know if they added something like that to Tekken, me personally, would do the exact same thing. Let me go and see if I want to buy this character or not. And I understand why they don't do that.
Going a step further, Tekken could also benefit from an online practice mode. With how much you have to learn, getting actual in-game advice from a more experienced player is extremely valuable.
I like this video because they go through I'm cutting out a lot. I want you guys to know that when I do reactions to these videos, I cut out a lot because I don't want it to be a copy and paste re-upload. But Blasted Salami is really going through a lot of good ideas here. Online practice, this would be incredible. Now the hard thing is you would have to find someone to online practice against. Maybe they can have a online match. You know how you can search for lobbies? Maybe they can add something into the game where you can search for a practice partner. Maybe multiple. Maybe 2 people can be controlling a character, and there could be others who's spectating and also commentating. And if someone else wanted to switch in, let's say player 3, player 4, player 5, they could switch in, right? There's a lot of different ways they can create, they can improve Tekken, just with a little bit of thought process, you know. I don't know how many people would use it, but the fact that it's there, you know, that could help Tekken, right?
And finally, communication. Communication is an important aspect of any competitive game. You've likely read plenty of patch notes in the past and thought, why would they do this? And most of the time, the answer remains a mystery, as fighting game developers rarely convey their intentions to the public.
The last one is communications, and this one is the most important, really. leading up to Evo, this past 2 years of Tekken, once season 4 was over, once we got Lita, that's when the developers went silent and no one knew what was happening. There was leaks, there was misinformation, there was bad news, there was good news, and the whole time the developers said nothing. It was up to the community to figure out what was true and what was not true. And there's a lot of things to this day that we still don't know and we want answers to. And I think communication is definitely one of the most important things when talking about the game.
In the past few years, however, there has been a positive shift, with some developers being more open and trying to build a bridge between the players and developers. Capcom has been one of the first to include relatively detailed explanations for balance changes in their patch notes. ArcSys, on the other hand, has created a whole blog series titled Developer Backyard.
And another example of this that I always give is Smite. Now I know people say, how dare you compare a MOBA to a fighting game? But what I'm always comparing is the developers and how they operate. In Smite, whenever they do a big update, like a new season or they're adding new characters, the developers spend a whole hour, like an hour, talking about the changes, talking about, well, this character had one of the best win rates in the game and we felt it was necessary to nerf them in this way so that it's easier for people to defend themselves. It's easier for people to escape this character. We changed this because we feel like when you're in this part of the map, this part of the arena, whatever, you're in way more danger than the other person, right? There's a lot of things that they explain and they talk about, and it's good to know these things. Whether you agree or disagree, at least you know.
For the past 3 years, we've also seen the annual Japan Fighting Game Publishers Roundtable, an event where all the industry leaders can gather together to have a very open discussion about their projects and the genre in general. With the next Tekken, we hope that Bandai Namco also takes a step forward with their communication.
I really do appreciate Harada. Like, the Harada's bar, in some ways, is that developer hour-long meeting. Like, there's a lot of things that he talk about in there that's good information. I do appreciate him. I appreciate Blast Islami and Dash Fight for this video, and I appreciate all of you for listening. That's going to be it. All of these points that are made in this video is pretty much what people already shout on Twitter at Harada. So I'm pretty sure he's hearing all of these complaints loud and clear. I believe Tekken 8 will fix a lot of it. Like in Tekken, if they fix all of these issues and then they just add a few more characters and they change the combos a little bit, make the game look better, and then boom, there's no way Tekken 8 can fail. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you next time, and bye bye.